the monumental loss the racing world, the sports world, and the American culture is now enduring. Dale Earnhardt was one of those rare individuals whose immense fame exceeded the bounds of his profession. He was Babe Ruth, Elvis Presley, all four Beatles. It is not overstated to say his following bordered on a religious scale. Hero, legend, icon, all expressions that fail in scope, fail to define a status for which a new word should be coined. But as we so painfully witnessed Sunday afternoon, Dale Earnhardt was in fact mortal. Mortal and human. Perhaps that is why he was loved so much. Underneath the nicknames that labeled his persona, the Man in Black, the Intimidator, there was a person in whom millions saw or wanted to see parts of themselves. He was fiercely intense and savagely competitive, but also funny and personable, decent and warm. All Dale Earnhardt ever wanted to be was a racer, and he was that to most, but so much more to a fortunate few. He was inseparable from his wife, Teresa. Where there was one, there was the other. He was a loving father to two sons and two daughters, Carrie, Kelly, Dale Jr., and 12-year-old Taylor Nicole. Dale Jr. represents the reinvention of Earnhardt himself, the father having nurtured the son to shared stardom. For him, the loss of his mentor is tragic, but devastating is the loss of his dad. Let us not underestimate, however, the loss that's being felt by those who live this sport every day. To them as well, he was family. He was a brother to some and a father figure to many. It was his respect that had to be earned. He was the one to impress and to make proud. He was a driver's driver and a man's man. He is truly a hero to heroes. May he now be where he always takes the checkered. Godspeed.
Welcome, race fans. I'm Whit Watson. Thanks for joining us on RPM today. You'll be up to speed in 30 minutes. As Darrell Waltrip said earlier this week, Dale died on Sunday, but racing did not. We don't know what effect Earnhardt's death will have on the sport. We do know there is racing today at the Duralube 400 at Rockingham. Daytona 500 champion Michael Waltrip will be there. So will Dale Jr. and Sterling Marlin and Kevin Harvick. But today, the reality sets in. Dale Earnhardt will not. Mike Massaro covering the event for us at the Rock. And Mike, it's got to be surreal, not just for the fans, but for the drivers as well.
It is surreal, Whit. As you know, today's Duralube 400 punctuates an emotional week for the drivers and the teams. But looking in their eyes, you can get a true sense of how difficult it is. Yet they understand that Dale Earnhardt pledged his life to NASCAR racing and to a great extent is responsible for where it is today. Out of respect for that memory and for the others who have lost their lives in this sport, they feel the right thing to do today is race.
I think we need to be racing this weekend. I think that our sport needs to go on. We did not race when other people died, and no one's life is any more valuable than anyone else's. So the fact that there's been a precedent set that we go on would be wrong to change that precedence.
I know that a lot of people feel that we shouldn't be racing, but that wouldn't be Dale. He'd be up there cussing at us if he knew that we weren't down here racing.
I think to get back to the racetrack is something that he would really wanted us to do and to do what we love doing, and that's racing. And I think he showed that after losing his good friend Neil Bonnet, that he went ahead and raced the next week and carried on. And not that it's going to make it any easier, but I think it'll be something that he will all want us to do. And we're all going to race with heavy hearts this weekend. And I think it'll make all the drivers more determined to win and run well because we all want to do it for him.
While drivers dedicate the race to Earnhardt's memory, fans have led a movement to retire the hallowed number 3, a tribute fitting of the Intimidator's accomplishments, but something that NASCAR has never done, begging the question, should Earnhardt be the first?
I kind of hope they retire that. I think that the fans deserve that have followed him for so long, and I think he deserves that for doing so much for the sport.
There are only so many numbers, and of course they didn't retire the number 43 when Richard Petty retired, and I'm not really one that feels too strongly about that.
In your opinion, do you think they should retire the number 3?
You know, on a personal level, of course, you know, professional level, that's not my duty, but, you know, personally, I think it'd be a great thing.
I don't know how he would feel about that. I don't think he would want it retired. I think he would like to see it out there and be competitive again and hopefully that it could win some races again. I don't think he would want it retired.
Now, Mike, the seatbelt story in the New York Daily News, if you could, summarize the article and what's been the response there this weekend.
Well, Whit, the New York Daily News reported this week that Dale Earnhardt and their team may have made alterations to the seatbelt that may have contributed to its failure. NASCAR spokesman John Griffin called that article speculation and says the investigation will continue. Meanwhile, president of Simpson Safety Products, Bill Simpson, maintains that his products had absolutely no role in the tragic incident at the Daytona 500. As you might imagine, there are many theories swirling around the garage today, but still, the overwhelming feel is disbelief that the seatbelt even broke.
As for the race itself, it is back to business today. What kind of an event do you think we can expect?
Well, there are overcast skies, and there are reports that there are showers in the area, so I think strategy may change a little bit. Some of these drivers and teams may be feeling a sense of urgency to get to the halfway point. That may play a role. Also, traditionally, Rockingham is a very abrasive racetrack, so tire strategy is always critical here as well. Jeff Gordon is strong. He's on the pole. He has 4 victories at Rockingham. But if you're looking for a prediction, I say Bobby Labonte is the man to beat. He won this race a year ago, and he rolls off 3rd here this afternoon.
All right, Mike, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again on RPM tonight.
Thank you, Whit.
One resident of Rockingham said she went to the track to pick up her tickets this week, and nobody in line was saying a word. For those who couldn't be in Charlotte Thursday, today is their memorial service. Earnhardt himself, a former champion at the North Carolina Speedway. Marlo Klain was in Charlotte this week, and she, too, has followed the series to Rockingham, about 2 hours away. Marlo, we heard stories about people driving for hours to stand outside the church in Charlotte. It must be a real challenge, a very difficult and odd experience for the fans and for the drivers this week.
I think there's no doubt about it. It's been a very, very strange week for the Winston Cup teams. They knew that racing was just days away earlier this week, but racing here at Rockingham was the furthest thing on their minds.
I don't think anybody really wants to go to Rockingham. If they canceled it, that'd be fine with all of us.
But after the drivers returned to the track Saturday at Rockingham, the dynamic of doing what they love and what most feel Earnhardt would have wanted them to do has been more therapeutic than depressing.
First, I was like, let's not race this weekend. I just can't imagine going to the racetrack without Dale Earnhardt there. But I think Dale would want us to be here competing, running as hard as we could, and doing everything we can to put on a great race.
We're not what I call normal subdivision people. We mourn, but we don't mourn for a long time. We're used to a quick-paced life. So although we're here, whether I agree with it or not, it's therapeutic.
If you're physically sick, if you got the flu or something, when you get in the car, you strap everything on, you put the helmet on, all of a sudden, you know, you forget all that.
There hasn't been a Winston Cup race without Earnhardt since September of 1979. For nearly all these drivers, this weekend is the first time they've ever been on a track at a Cup event without the Intimidator.
It's really been a little foggy, I guess. It's because you're trying to do so many things at once. You got so much stuff on your mind. It's hard to. This requires concentration, and it's hard to truly 100% concentrate with all that's going on.
Getting in a race car this morning, is pretty good because that's where I feel the most comfortable, doing stuff that I like to do, and it's part of my hobby and get paid for it. And it's still pretty hard, but I guess all in all, that's probably the best thing to do. And at one hand, you don't want to be here, and the other hand, you do want to be here.
To honor Earnhardt, just before today's race, there will be a moment of silence, and then Darrell Waltrip will lead the invocation this afternoon. And then, during the national anthem, when the planes perform the traditional flyover, they will do a maneuver called the Missing Man Formation. Then, during the parade laps, Jeff Gordon, as the pole sitter, will drop back to symbolize a missing Earnhardt. Whit?
Now, Marlo, on the subject, almost as soon as Dale Earnhardt passed away, there was all kinds of speculation as to what NASCAR, what the drivers would do to memorialize him during this race today. And one of the theories, there was talk of putting a black number 3 Chevrolet on the track today, but that isn't going to happen. Why not?
Well, no, they're not going to do that today, and Richard Childress was going to be the one who was going to drive that car. But Dale Earnhardt's family felt that it was just a little too early to do that and to see the black number 3 back on the racetrack.
Marlo, do you have a prediction for us on this Sunday?
Well, I know Mike went with Bobby Labonte. I am actually going to go with Jeff Gordon today. He has been very strong here this weekend. He's obviously your pole sitter, so that's an easy pick. But, you know, the kid was always a thorn in Earnhardt's side, and I think it would be quite fitting today to see him win, and I think he's very strong today.
Marlo, we look forward to you and Mike going at it at 6:30 Eastern time. It's the,
we have dinner riding on this one, Whit.
All right. 6:30 Eastern for RPM tonight. Marlo, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Our show rolls on after a break. Gordon on the pole at the Rock, and we'll roll through the grid. We'll also relive Earnhardt's 1996 win at Rockingham, not without some controversy, and thoughts from Michael Waltrip as the Daytona 500 champion remembers his employer and friend on RPM Today. Jeff Gordon wore a black number 3 ball cap for most of his interviews after he captured the pole for today's Duraloop 400. Gordon said he could feel the presence of Dale Earnhardt during his qualifying run. The pole is the 34th of Gordon's career, and afterwards he spoke with Marlo Klain.
Jeff Gordon is on the pole, but Jeff, when you went to take the green flag, you weren't even up to full speed, is that right?
You know, with now getting 1 round of qualifying, 2 laps out there, and Goodyear's brought a little bit different tire back here, you know, maybe we need to look at how we're approaching qualifying, and I did. I didn't think that the heat and the speed was there in the first lap, so I just kind of got rid of the first lap, got my tires heated up, and carried more momentum to the line, and it seemed to work because I didn't think we had a shot at the pole, and then afterwards I said, man, that was a great lap, so I'm glad it all came together.
Jeff, when we talked to a lot of guys coming into this weekend, they said, you know what, everyone wants to win this particular race for Earnhardt. Do you feel the same way?
Well, I want to win every race, and I certainly dedicated today's pole, you know, to Dale. I just had the utmost respect for him, and I'm missing him, you know. It's just not the same being out there. I know that we'll be able to go on, but that doesn't mean we're going to go on in the same way we did before, and you know, I do want to win this race, and I would love to dedicate it to him, and I'm glad I was on the pole today to be able to do that also.
What was it like being back out there?
Well, the best thing for a driver is to get back in the cockpit of the car. You know, it takes your mind off of everything that's going on around you, and you're able to focus on your race car and your race team. And so that was good. That was comforting. It's when you're outside the car and, you know, you see the look on everybody's eye, in their eyes, and you know, everybody is different right now. And this has been a tough week for a lot of people, but, you know, my heart and my prayers go out to Teresa and that family. I just can't imagine what they're going through, and as much as we think it's devastating, you can only imagine what they're going through.
A lot of people said earlier this week they didn't think that they should race this weekend. Are you finding it more now that everyone's at the track to be more therapeutic now that everyone's together again?
In a way, yeah. You know, at first I was like, let's not race this weekend. I just can't imagine going to the racetrack without Dale Earnhardt there. But I think Dale would want us to be here competing, running as hard as we could, and doing everything we can to put on a great race. And that's what we're going to do.
Well, being on the pole for the spring race at Rockingham hasn't been all that great lately. The last 5 spring pole sitters at the Rock have an average finish of 20th, and none of them out of the last 5 have finished in the top 10. The last pole sitter to win either the spring or fall race at the Rock was Jeff Gordon in the 1995 spring race. Now, Dale Earnhardt didn't earn nicknames like Ironhead or the Intimidator for nothing. As one commentator said last weekend prior to that fatal accident, Earnhardt didn't know how to drive a car unless the front end was torn up. That aggressive style was his hallmark, and it won him a lot of races, including a 1996 stop at Rockingham, one that Bobby Hamilton clearly remembers.
I hadn't won 7 championships. I hadn't won my first race. I hadn't won 84 or 85 races, whatever he's won. But I'm smart enough to know you don't do that to start the season because there's too many races left.
Bobby Hamilton, he yielded the lead on a pit stop, but here he comes back to take it away from Earnhardt on the racetrack. So Earnhardt now trying to go back to the front, and he'll work the low side of the racetrack. 342. Here comes Hamilton right back.
Wow. Hamilton on the low side now, and he's got the lead back.
Look at Earnhardt right up under him right now. Now that'll loosen you up.
Whoa! I guess
that'll loosen you up. Hamilton on the wall.
Well, he was lucky to save that car.
Wow! My goodness, Dale Earnhardt hangs to the lead now at lap
Right rear pretty hard.
4.
He was good. I was good. You know, He's professional. I'm just getting to be a professional. We're both going to be around for a long time, it looks like, so we'll work it out.
We bumped a little, and things just came together with the bumps in the racetrack, sort of like the bumps up and down. And it was just close racing. Fortunately, he corrected and was okay there, and then he got in another wreck later on, so that's tough.
Here comes Dale Jarrett in the 88 machine as he works to the inside of Earnhardt and grabs the lead, and caution is on the speedway now for problems in turn number 4. Lake Speed having problems with the rolling spam can as the leader is Jarrett now, and they'll race back to the stripe. My goodness.
This is unusual. Earnhardt's been running the high line, and Coach got his lap back, and Earnhardt's gotten underneath the 88 of Dale Jarrett.
And the power and performance to get past Dale Jarrett there on the final restart.
Well, I don't think we outpowered him as much as we just outhandled him and had a good package.
Bobby Hillen spins. Caution is being displayed at lap 390. This race will end under yellow for Dale Earnhardt. Checkered flag in the air, and the GM Goodwrench Racing Team winning the Goodwrench Service 400.
It was really close racing all day, and we dodged a couple of wrecks ourselves, and the car worked real consistent all day, though. It was just right there all day, and at the end, when I needed to bear down, I could.
3 of Earnhardt's 76 career wins came at the Rock, the last coming 5 years ago to the day, February 25th, 1996. The other 2 in 87 and 94. He led over 1,400 laps in 44 starts at Rockingham, and 2 of his 3 wins there came at the spring race. When we come back, we'll hear from the Daytona 500 champion. Michael Waltrip speaks about his friend and employer when RPM continues. In golf, there are the best players never to have won a major. In racing, there are good drivers who simply lacked the equipment and the backing to win. Dale Earnhardt believed that Michael Waltrip was one of those drivers. Earnhardt took some heat for hiring Waltrip to drive for DEI prior to this season. Some said that his friendship with Waltrip had clouded his judgment. The Daytona 500 proved that theory incorrect. Waltrip spoke about his late friend and employer at length this week.
The reason why I won the Daytona 500 was because of Dale Earnhardt. He believed in me. He thought I could do the job. He gave me a ride in an awesome piece of equipment, and then he knew physically I could do the job, and he knew I had the equipment to do the job. And ever since November, he's mentally been working on me to do the job. Every time I'd see him, he'd say, "You better win a race. You're going to win a race." And I went to Daytona and had heard it so long. I said, "Yeah, I am going to win a race. I'm going to win this race." And so he had me perfectly prepared to do the job. That's just what kind of person he was. He was bigger than life. He was deeper than people that loved him so much ever knew. He was amazing. Dale was in charge, you know. When you walked in the room, you would sit down and he'd say, "Why'd you sit there for? You shouldn't have sat there. You should have sat right over there. It'd be better if you sat right there." And he wasn't being a boss or anything. He just was trying to help you be better. You know, he knew if you sat right there, that was going to be a better spot for you. And he was concerned about your well-being, and if he could help you at all or thought he could help you at all, he wouldn't hesitate interjecting his opinion. And that's what I'm going to miss the most about him, is just, I felt like that he took my career and said, "Okay, you've really done a bad job of running this deal. I'm going to take over from here on out." And he was in charge for one race, and I won. That's what meant the most to me, that he personally knew me and personally knew that I wanted to win and I wanted to be a great race car driver, and he opened the door for me to be that. I have peace inside of me, and I have just a confidence and a faith to know that Dale wants me to keep racing, and I want to keep racing. We have lost possibly the greatest stock car race ever, and that hurts. But that's the least thing that I worry about. I lost a friend that I loved dearly who changed my life, and so that hurts second worst. But then I saw the way that Dale treated Teresa and their life together, how special it was, and Taylor, and what he meant to his kids. And we can find us another hero on the racetrack, but those people will never have another hero at home like Dale was, and so that's the one that's going to be hard for me to get over.
Racing fans creating their own memorials to number 3. More thoughts on the Intimidator when RPM Today continues. The Winston Cup Series comes to Rockingham twice a year, but this is the one chance for fans to remember their 7-time champion from Kannapolis, North Carolina. A tough day for those on hand to see the Duralube 400. An RPM triple header today, back at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and then again at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Complete results from Rockingham plus Supercross and the World of Outlaws, and we'll gear up for next week, which includes a stop in Las Vegas. That is all tonight at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN2. We'll also hear from the Saturday Busch winner, Todd Bodine, on RPM Tonight later today. RPM Today ready to wrap it up after this.
If he could help you at all, or thought he could help you at all, he wouldn't hesitate interjecting his opinion, and that's what I'm going to miss the most about him, is just, I felt like that he took my career and said, okay, you've really done a bad job of running this deal. I'm going to take over from here on out. And he was in charge for one race, and I won.
The Intimidator, I remember my first year down at IROC in Daytona, and he was standing by one of the trucks, and he's got his glasses on, and he's got his arms crossed, and he's just watching everybody walk by and stuff, and I went up and stood next to him, and oh, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm just looking at everybody.
We did this old dirt track. We run go-karts on, me and my sister Kelly and Tony Jr. and everybody. We get all these yard carts. Dad get on there on a four-wheeler, a Honda four-wheeler. Man, he'd fly, outrun all those. He run on 2 wheels in the corners and stuff. Had a lot of fun with it. So that's probably that's the early competition that we had. And then he cheated. He had more horsepower and you know, had them big old tires on that four-wheeler. So of course he won. And you know, ever since then it's who sells most souvenirs, who signs the most autographs, who's got the most appearances. And I'm winning all these battles. He just don't want to admit it.
I can think of a Make-A-Wish kid just the other day that wanted to meet Dale Earnhardt at the IROC luncheon, and that was his dream. And he was there from Orlando and got to meet his buddy Dale Earnhardt, and they became quick friends. And just to see the smile on that young man's face and how much Dale enjoyed it too. So I could go on and on, but what a terrific person.
I can remember doing a football game years ago out in Texas one night, and my wife Joni was 8 months pregnant with our daughter, and he called the house. He happened to turn to ESPN and saw me doing a football game, and he calls the house where we were living up in the mountains and says, Joni, said, I know Doc's doing a game, and it's snowing like crazy outside, and you're on top of the mountain. He probably took the 4-wheel drive to the airport, right? And she said, oh, yeah, but I'm okay. I'm still a month away from delivering. I'm fine, Dale. Thanks for calling anyway. He said, no. He said, I've already got 2 guys with a flatbed truck on their way up the mountain with a 4-wheel drive, and one of the guys is going to stay there till Doc gets back in case you need anything. And that's the kind of guy Dale Earnhardt was.
I was traveling the country. A policeman came up and said, I'm an Earnhardt man. I'm going to miss him. I mean, the man was a larger-than-life figure in American sport. He's a down-to-earth, straightforward, plain-spoken fella who was a star.
One final note, there was some rain this morning in Rockingham, North Carolina. We understand that things have let up a little bit, and race has a pretty good chance of going off. Come back and see us at 6:30 Eastern for RPM Tonight. Bye.